Welcome, everyone, to Friday 15 with Master B2B. My name is Brian, back here with Andy Hoare. Our band was a little slow to pick up the pace there.
They're hungover.
I guess, man. Anyway, welcome, everyone, to Friday 15. We've got another great show and a report from the field today from across the world. We're going to have some fun, Andy, talking about what's going on across the world, the B2B e-commerce, literally across the globe. So we'll get to that in just a minute. But first, we've got to do, of course, our breaking news. And what do we see this week? Andy, look at this. Amazon opens its vast logistics network to every business, not just marketplace sellers. They're following the AWS playbook, building its cloud computing infrastructure to support its internal needs, then releasing it to the wider market. Amazon officially announced its supply chain services, opening its logistics network to businesses outside of the traditional marketplace ecosystem. The B2B play is interesting because it generally has better margins on the fulfillment side than B2C logistics, and of course, it links to Amazon's desire to attract more B2B sellers to its platform. This has been coming, Andy. We talked about this. We see this and use it in my in SEBA business, where we help B2B companies with their Amazon, selling. This crosses, what's amazing about this, Andy, is it crosses every aspect of logistics, global logistics, sourcing all the way back into Asia and other markets, all ocean freight, all the way through, fulfillment, staging warehouses here in the U.S. or Amazon warehousing distribution, fulfillment by Amazon, multi-channel fulfillment. So now shipping using Amazon to ship products sold in other channels. And finally, Amazon shipping. FedEx stock went down as soon as this announcement was made. They now have shipping services as a part of this. They're offering to companies to actually do the shipping for them in their fulfillment. But anyway, what's your reaction to all this, Andy?
Amazon continues to reinvent old businesses. I mean, that's really a way to think about it. Starting with the book stuff and then everything else they've added to their site, and then AWS. They're going to be doing it with AI. With Rufus and Quad and all their partnerships, everybody, they keep developing things for and this is the key here, vertically integrated business. It helps
right
when you control from top to bottom.
Yep.
FedEx and UPS are just contractors. They're moving stuff around and they do a good job of it, but Amazon moves its own stuff around.
Right.
And they got a lot of their own stuff. And you just touched on the B2B side of things. That's what's really fascinating here, is that this is just quietly happening for Amazon business. I mean, we talk about this often. Like, what is the real number for Amazon's B2B business, right? It's anywhere from 35 billion to probably 200 billion. That's quite a range. And yet, they don't even actually know on their own how much B2B they're doing, because they know Amazon business number, which they release like once every 3 years, and they undercount it, I think, intentionally. The last we officially heard was $35 billion. There's no way it's $35 billion. No. It's well over 100 billion, but it could be 200 even more billion, because people buy a lot of their B2B stuff through Amazon.com. They don't have to go to Amazon Business to do that. So if you took all of the Amazon B2B business, independent of where it is, it's hundreds of billions of dollars. And now you've got this supporting it. Plus, another thing is quietly that Amazon's been doing is they announced, I think it was a $4 billion initiative, just $4 billion, to take Amazon to rural areas, which is kind of interesting for B2B. So if you marry all this stuff up, the vertically integrated business coupled with the logistics and the fulfillment, we say all those trucks, and the rural part of this, suddenly it becomes a really interesting play in the B2B space.
Well, here's the other thing they announced this week, Andy, that we didn't talk about in that article, but also was announced, is they've now introduced all of their grocery and food is now available through Amazon Business. That was another
really?
Yeah. So if you think about their play into food service and all the hospitality restaurants, there's tens of thousands, probably over 100,000 restaurants, for example, buying through Amazon Business now. So they've now made all of that available to business buyers. That's another big announcement. And the fascinating thing is you read their earnings release, and there's no mention of Amazon Business. This is $100 billion business. I'm convinced of it, probably more for Amazon.
You know why
they don't even talk about it? It's crazy.
Here's why they don't talk about it. Why should they? Because nobody asked them about it. That's what's amazing. I was quoted in an interview with the Wall Street Journal like a year ago, and the reporter who writes about a lot of stuff Amazon related, he goes, "Hey, I didn't even know that Amazon had this B2B thing."
Are you serious?
Yeah,
Wow.
he's a reporter for the Wall Street
Oh
Journal.
my gosh.
And
Wow.
he's like, why? And his question to me is, why is nobody talking about this? In fact, he wanted me to sort of say on record that it's the sleeping giant within Amazon. And I was unwilling to do that because I can't speak to what the priorities are within Amazon. But I said it's a sleeping giant, period.
No question. Yeah. Yeah, no question, man. It's incredible. And I go to these trade shows as you do too, Andy, and I'll walk the floor, and sometimes I go to manufacturer shows, right? And I'll talk to companies. These are old line big companies, big manufacturers. Say, did you know Amazon has a B2B arm? They go, really? And it's like, wow. To your point, sleeping hidden giant to some degree, yes. And but it's there, and it's a very significant influence, and it's driven by the buyer.
The best of all worlds. They get to do whatever they want to do behind the scenes, test things out, play around, make mistakes with no scrutiny, but be a publicly traded company and not be asked about it. I mean, why aren't any analysts asking them about, hey, what's the plan for Amazon? Do you realize if it's really of that magnitude, it is possible that Amazon Business's revenue rivals that of AWS? Rivals it. Yet they get questions left and right about AWS, but no questions at all about Amazon Business. I was told by other people who follow this more closely is that the analyst community doesn't understand it or care about B2B. They just consider that to be the essential economy that is slow growth and immature. And they don't ask about it because it's not exciting. And it's the same stuff you and I have known for years.
I love it.
And I'm like, Amazon's got to be sitting back and laughing, like, yeah, don't ask us about it. And then we'll wake up one day and it's $1 trillion business. And they'll go, where was this?
Right. That's right. Exactly. No, that's exactly what's happening. And it's so true of B2B. It's the whole industry is like that, which is why I love it. Right. It's not flashy. It's just, the opportunities are real. The people are practical and humble. It's just a great business. So, all right. So we got to get into our topic today. But before we do so, I want to share with everyone that our forum continues to grow. And if you are a practitioner, an executive at a manufacturer, distributor, you need to be in here because it is where the industry is meeting and talking. So go to our website, masterb2b.com forum, submit an application. If you're a practitioner, we'll admit you, there's no cost to join it. There's no vendors in there. It's all practitioners. Great place to be. You need to be there if you're in the industry. So let's talk about our topic today, which is a report from the field. Andy, we were across the freaking globe this week, across the globe. And that's not every week we can say that. But really exciting. So we were in Chicago this week, you and I, for the B2B online conference. And then we're going to bring in a special guest to talk about his trip to Manchester, England. I
heard he dyed his hair purple too, so he could fit in with
I think he did.
So we started
exactly. So you and I were in Chicago, in the heartland of the United States, where a lot of our folks from our B2B community are located in the Midwest for the B2B online conference. There were probably, I want to say, maybe 800 people there-ish, maybe 900, somewhere in that range. Well attended. Industry showed up in force. A lot of folks we know and saw. Our community was certainly there. Saw some new folks as well. There were some, some great presentations from folks like Eric Rail at Schneider, talking about, AI. What else? I mean, the major theme here, Andy, was all about AI, right? I mean, there was some data that was shared, about how companies are using AI. In fact, there was clear data showing that B2B, as you show in your book, is significantly outpacing and finding more value in the use of AI than B2C companies are. The majority, this was some data that those of you who can see the screen from LucidWorks that was shared. The CEO was there talking about the majority of B2B companies seeing benefit now, 66% seeing improved productivity, 61% seeing increased customer satisfaction, tangible cost savings, increased revenue. And one example, Eric from Schneider, again, he shared how they're using SEO or GEO, generative engine optimization. We've talked about this in our Friday 15s together with SEM, that's traditional paid search, to improve the performance of their overall search marketing. So significant improvements in things like click-through rates and leads generated and things like that by using LLMs and using GEO practices to improve their paid search. So these were just some examples, Andy, of what we heard at B2B Online. It was all about AI. I'm wondering, maybe even too much AI. I mean, at the expense of other things. What are your thoughts?
Well, AI is the sexy new toy, the shiny new toy, I should say. And, we know that on the vendor side, if we're being perfectly frank here, it increases the valuation, or at least used to.
Right.
And so everybody puts AI at the end of everything. In fact, I was at a lunch at the event. It was branded the AI lunch. And I was like, okay, this has gone a bit too far when we're
Were you eating
associating
chips?
AI. Yeah, I know. Is it generative food now too? I mean, so yeah, I think, but the reality is we're living that all aside, the hype versus the reality. We are living through a transformational time. In fact, what you mentioned up there about Schneider Electric was fascinating, because the part nobody's talking about, and I do know this from the research I did for the book, is how few websites are actually ready to be read by machines.
Interesting.
So they talk a big game about we're an AI company, and then the website's still designed for humans. I think I mentioned this I think it was last week or the week before, that, agents hate JavaScript, and they hate pull downs, and there's a bunch of things they can't read well. They also
Right.
like deterministic data versus probabilistic data,
Huh.
meaning it's a fact versus a theory. They don't handle theories very well. And so a lot of sites are, still emotional language, et cetera. And I don't know about Schneider Electric site, but yeah, half the equation is outward looking, which is, yes, we're trying to capture these, generative engine, answer engine stuff, but half of it's inward looking. Like, are we really redesigning our website so it can be read by machines? Because in a couple of years, the vast majority, in fact, it might happen sooner, of the traffic to all B2B websites are going to be agents. And so if you're optimized for humans and you got a bunch of agents going there, it'd be like saying, I'm optimized for the wrong buyer group. And so I'd
Yeah.
like to hear more about that, but that's hard for people to absorb.
A couple practical things. I mean, we did some research for my company in SEBA, Andy, and we were trying to look at how do we show up well for searches. And one of the things, we found a bunch of information and examples of companies that had put up pages on their websites specifically for the LLMs. Said, LLM, go here. Here's what you should know about us. And we did that. I don't know what the results are yet because we did it last week, but that's just a practical tip. The other thing was interesting. I heard a tidbit at the conference, someone talking about, when you're using an LLM, when you're using a chat GPT, tell it that you're going to verify its answers with another LLM. Tell it you're going to say, hey, give me this, this, and this. And oh, by the way, I'm going to verify this with Claude and 5 other engines. So give me your best answer.
You get a better answer that way. I know
Hold it
somebody
accountable.
tested that, and they got
Yeah.
a different answer. It was a
Yep.
lower quality answer, and when they told them they're going to test against something else, it was a higher quality
Isn't that
answer.
incredible?
No joke.
It's hilarious. So I think, one of the things, so the other big takeaway, of course, is a constant theme is data, of course, that we heard that quite consistently at the conference, that data needs to be, at the foundation of all this. You need to clean up whatever's going on there, because, the LLMs, whether it's on your own site and your own use of AI, or whether it's through the, LLMs, that, the chat GPTs of the world, making sure that your data is clean. That was another major theme. And there were some other sessions too, right, that were not AI, but there was AI, I think the industry itself is getting a little bit too wrapped up in this at the expense maybe of some other things, which, where's channel conflict or organizational development or other things that people are dealing with, right?
Well,
We
and
need to be
also
talking about that too.
yeah, and then also that practical thing, which we continue to see. We saw this with e-commerce, and we're seeing it now with AI, is that buyer-seller perception gap, where the
Right.
sellers feel like they're doing so much better than the buyers actually report. I
Right.
think there's some Deloitte research about this. I jotted this down. 87% of suppliers believe their sales processes are well automated, and only 47% of buyers agree.
Right. Right.
So,
Right.
you
Big,
know,
big gap there. No question.
And that was the same thing we saw with e-commerce. But yeah, this is the problem is it's not going to move slowly. It's going to move quickly. And if you're really that much of a gap, what's going to happen is the buyers are going to find the path of least resistance. They're going to go to where the information is best for them. And what's going to end up happening is a lot of these sites where there's a disconnect, they're going to find out the hard way there's a disconnect.
Well, that's why Amazon Business is growing. So we also had our dinners, Andy, in Chicago. Just a fantastic turnout. I mean, we actually had a waiting list both nights. We couldn't fit everybody, which was crazy.
Hey, you barely got in.
I know, really. I mean, you're working hard to keep me out of the dinner. I understand that. We had a really fun icebreaker. We talked about AI and why, give us a funny use case of where AI screwed something up, and the other one was give us if you wanted to take one part of your job and farm it out to AI, what would it be? That was a fun one. But we had over 60 people at our dinners, and really just a fantastic group. Really the cream of the crop too. I mean, we had just some incredible people from all different kinds of companies, Middleby and Schneider Electric and Zorro and just Toyota. It was just really a great group. A lot of the conference speakers were with us. So those you can see it. There's a few pictures here on the screen from that. So we'll continue to unite our community as we go to these different conferences and events. And then of course, we weren't just in Chicago.
Wait, are we out of time now?
We're out of time. Yeah, we're out of time. So we'll just end it there. Just kidding. Just kidding, Jared. So Mr. Jared Blank was flying across the Atlantic here. There's a nice little meme of Mr. Jared Blank. For those of you who can see this, from our team. I
don't know how you got that photo, Brian. That's amazing.
Well, I was in space, and he flew over to Manchester, England.
And it looks like he only took carry-on too, which is also surprising.
That's right. He brought a carry-on. So, Jared, welcome to the
Hi there.
show again. And so you went over to Manchester. So where did you go, and what were you doing there, sir?
I was in Manchester, England, across the Atlantic Sea, as they say in the musical Hair, for the ill-named IR B2B Ecom conference.
I see.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what were you doing there? What is that? What is that?
There is an event. By the way, I love that you brought me on after 15 minutes already.
Of course. I mean, yes.
I always say, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And so I'm not.
We certainly are. Yes.
Well, I thought, Jared, you might say, look, as the producer of the show, I can't in good conscience have myself on after the 15-minute mark. So I'm going to have to call it.
I was going to go in the other room and make my lunch and call it a day, but so they do actually quite a cool event in Manchester called Manchester Tech Week. And there's a slew of events. There's one very large tech event as like sort of the main event. And then they have a bunch of smaller events throughout the city over the course of the week. And this B2B event was their second year doing this. A B2B specific event was a part of that.
Cool. And you spoke at the event. What did you talk about?
I spoke at the event. I presented the findings of our 2026 State of E-commerce survey, which will be out. Andy, when do you think that'll be out?
Soon.
Yeah, soon. Yeah. It'll be out soon. I know I'm done with my part, so I'm not really sure which part we're waiting for, but the results will be out. So that was
a rigorous QA process that we're running right now.
Yeah.
So once that's done, that'll be out. But I shared some of the results of that, and then I hosted the second day, where I got to introduce all the sessions and make hilarious jokes in between.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Did they get your humor though? They're British.
They're a very dry sense of humor, which they seem to, I think aligned with how they think about things.
Okay, excellent. So it resonated perfectly. What were your, Jared? What were one or two key themes? I mean, is it what you heard different than what we're talking about here in the U.S. or what? Tell us.
Not at all. Okay. Not at all. So it is. It's all the same stuff. Product data, customer experience, how should your website look, AI, marketplaces. It is all of the usual suspects. The thing that I think is interesting, and I've done work with a number of European companies over time, I think that the common wisdom is that Europe in e-commerce is behind, say like 18 months behind what we're doing. I'm not sure I really found that to be the case. I think they're more considered. And I think there's like a whole bunch of reasons for that. but I think they make, even in B2B, where people are making pretty slow, well-considered decisions, I think they're making even slower, even more well-considered decisions.
Interesting.
And I think there's not the capitalistic risk-taking gene that we have that built our nation here. And I think there's just less, somehow even in B2B, less appetite for risk, which makes, I think, which just slows everything down, which is why I thought actually one of the more interesting sessions was around sort of the culture piece about how do you get everyone on board? How do you get buy-in? How do you get the team buy-in and executive buy-in? And around the culture, it was someone from Heineken speaking about it. And I thought that really tied together all of the different sessions, because ultimately, if everyone isn't aligned, it will be slow rolled for eternity.
That's interesting. Yeah. So it's probably the same fundamentals, but just maybe moving, to your point, a little bit more slowly. Wow. So can B2B move any more slowly?
Yeah, really. Was there any discussion about the regulatory environment? Because in the United States, it's, whatever you want to do, basically. There are no rules, and that's good and bad in many ways. But in Europe, there are definitely rules. And so did anybody talk about how they can't do some things they want to do because the government wants to let them for privacy reasons, et cetera?
Yeah, it came up in one of the sessions on marketing about sort of the limitations. Someone was asking about growing a new piece of business that they have. And we were sort of discussing ideas about customer acquisition. And there are definitely limitations to customer acquisition in Europe that we do not have here. And so I think because GDPR and those regulations aren't new exactly, it's just sort of imbued in how you think about your strategy, and that you are, depending on how you look at it, either being respectful or handcuffed in a lot of your customer acquisition efforts.
Interesting. All right. Well, we got to leave it there for time, Mr. Blank. Thank you for joining us. And we will see you after the show, in which you'll yell at us for going too long. All right. See you later. All right, Andy, let's keep going. Couple quick public service announcements here before we wrap. Number one, want to make people aware of our Master B2B Nexus service, which is your personal digital lifeline. It's a group of experts, industry experts, former practitioners, as well as giving you access to our broader list of a group of practitioners to help you address questions and identify resources. We are now sourcing and helping companies find executives who are qualified to lead their e-commerce practices, as well as even project work. We've just gotten into this where we're not performing the project work ourselves, but we are helping to source qualified consultants to help companies to solve their problems. So Nexus continues to expand and add value to our practitioner community. So I encourage you to check that out at Nexus on our website, masterb2b.com. And then finally, I want to remind everyone that our Friday 15 episodes are available in your favorite podcast service. I was just talking to Stacey Hanks this week, Andy Hoare from SureWorks. She said, she's listening every day to our podcast, catching up on all of our past episodes. So
every day?
She said every day, every morning.
Wow.
She said, I used to listen to the news. Now I don't listen to the news anymore. I listen to your podcast because it's much more positive. So, right?
I hear it's great to listen to when you're at the dentist too. So maybe that's what she's doing.
No, right. Well, I don't think she's at the dentist every day, but I don't know. Stacey does have good teeth. Anyway, so Stacey, thank you. But folks, please give us a review on the Friday 15. We appreciate that, and just spread the word. We'd love to, anyone else in our community, love to have them involved in our community as well, in our forum, and listening to our Friday 15. So with that, everyone, leave it there. Andy, any final words on our Friday? Oh, I don't know, almost 30 minutes.
No, but Barry should stay tuned for our next big event, which is going to be coming this fall. And we're going to be doing something in partnership with Shop Talk. So stay tuned.
Yeah, we'll be announcing that shortly in more detail. So look forward to seeing you in Nashville this fall for that event too. So we'll have some more news on that shortly. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We will be back next week for our next Friday 15. See you later.